and my job within SoConnect is to really take full responsibility for the operational aspect of what we do, which involves not only training and being involved in understanding our own staff, but make sure that we can pass on that training and knowledge to a lot of our customers. Ewan Stewart's our technical officer, our chief technical officer. I'll let him introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Ewan Stewart. I'm CTO at SoConnect. I have a similar sort of background to Gordon. I was with him at IT Centric and came through the acquisition into SoConnect a year and a half ago. Since then, yeah, lots changed in the industry and obviously in cybersecurity in particular. Excuse me, which is why we're putting a lot of focus on this for our customers and trying to relay this information as we are learning it through our peers and professionals in the industry. Alex, I'll let you introduce yourself and let everyone know why you're here today.
Awesome, thank you, Ian. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Alex, one of the account managers at Housekeeping. And my job is basically to work with MSPs to basically be able to resell your secure platform and to also get feedback from MSPs and customers on how we can improve it. For example, by having more content, having better features, etc. So my job is basically to do all of that stuff.
Thank you, Alex. So just a bit of housekeeping for everyone. Cameras and mics turned off, please. We are recording this, so if you know of anyone who had registered for it and wasn't able to attend, they can get a copy of the recording. We will send it to those that have registered and haven't been able to join for any reasons. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to stick them in the chat, and we'll either pick them up as we go if it's relevant, or we'll leave them to the end. But we will do our best to get all questions answered. There are also going to be, I think, 4 polls that we'll have, just very short questions as we go through some of the slides relevant to those slides, and we can just discuss the results of those polls as we come to them. So that's the housekeeping finished with, and I will now hand you on to Ewan to talk about cybersecurity.
Cool. So just to kind of summarize briefly what cybersecurity is, again, for those that may not know, it's about having the right technologies and controls in place to protect systems, networks, and data, and devices against cyber attacks, essential for both organizations and individuals. Thinking about cybersecurity.
Have we lost you in? Excuse me, everyone. We seem to have a bit of a technical glitch. Here we are. Control. Here we are. So looks like we've lost you in temporarily. I know that the area that he lives in has got a significant amount of building going on, and occasionally the local workforce, the local builders have problems with power. So Ewan will rejoin us in a minute. I'll just pick up from where he was. So cybersecurity, yeah, it's essential for businesses and individuals. We all need to be aware of this. Here you're back again, Ewan.
Yeah, apologies.
No problem. I'll let you pick up where you were.
Sorry. Yeah, cybersecurity is all about having the right things in place, some policies and some solutions to make sure that all the systems and networks and devices are all protected. It's both important for the integrity of the company as well as individuals. And thinking about cybersecurity can be daunting, but there's actually some simple steps which we're going to go through and through the slides and talk about how we're going to do that. Bear with me a second. I think we're on to is this the first poll, I think?
First poll, yeah, first poll is just now. Clear.
So that should all pop up on your screens. And it's going to be asking you a question about what do you think the average cost of a cyber attack is to a small business, and we're just looking to gather this information, and we'll share it with you at the very end just to get an understanding of what everybody thinks is involved in the outcomes of some of these questions are, and some of them might be surprising.
Indeed, and as an MSP with a significant number of users to be responsible for, unfortunately, we occasionally see the effects of cyber attacks to small businesses, and they can come in various different forms, and they probably happen a lot more frequently than most people would realise.
Okie doke, I think we're ready to move on to the next slide. So this is some information that we got from the NCSC, which is the National Cybersecurity Centre for the UK. Gives us some information here on the attacks that's happening to business and what it's costing them. And so according to the NCSC, is that the UK businesses, 39% have suffered some sort of a cyber attack in the last 12 months. That's a huge amount. That's a significant portion of the businesses in the UK. And obviously that's going to have some sort of impact, whether it's operational or what the bad actors are looking for is some sort of financial footing and gain. So the average cost of cyber attack to a small business is £4,200 for small businesses, all the way up to £19,400 for medium to large enterprises. And the graph on the right will kind of summarise the segments of all the businesses and how much some have paid, and obviously there's some in the million plus area, which is generally obviously outside our remit in terms of the SME market, but those are going to be the types of attacks that you have probably likely saw in the news. Those are the ones that kind of make the headlines, those that have had a significant cyber attack. So, but the important thing is here is this number, that 39%, has actually been growing year on year since about 2015. So it's really, really important that we all have that awareness and we all kind of work together to put these controls and measures in place to really minimise the risk. We've got another poll question coming up and again on your screens. And this is just to ask everyone, and hopefully everybody answers this kind of honestly if they can, it's just to let us know, have you been the victim of a cyber attack in the last 12 months? And that could be anything from a single mailbox to being compromised to your entire network being put down for the day. Anything that involves some sort of intrusion into your business by a non-authorized person would signify some sort of cyber breach. On to the next one. So just to summarize some of the top cyber threats out there, again, you might be aware of some of them. So ransomware, it's still a big threat to businesses, and again, whether you're cloud or not, there's a misunderstanding, just because you might have your entire business operating in cloud and SaaS platforms, that you're somehow mitigated from any sort of ransomware attack, which is not true. Exploits are mainly done through weaknesses in the IT infrastructure, or they're done through the second point here, which is a phishing attack, which is accountable for more than 80% of all breaches. And for those again that don't know what phishing is, it's an email being delivered to a person's inbox, duping that person, a bad actor duping that person to gather either information or potentially click on a link. They might be advertising themselves as the government, or your tax or something like that, or any sort of platform that your business and your employees interact with frequently. A bad actor will use that as phishing to try and dupe that person. Social engineering is one of the fastest growing areas, which is bad actors will want to gather information on people, specific people, using social media, getting what they can online, doing Google searches, gathering information from the dark web, etc., and basically building a profile to use that in some sort of malicious attack, by either impersonating that person, or harvesting enough information where they could potentially perform some sort of password reset on a platform. And again, ultimately, their end goal is to get into the environment and hopefully try and gain some sort of financial footing where they can potentially transfer monies. And the last area, and this is again the whole topic of this conversation, this webinar, is employees have been viewed as the weakest link in businesses in the security chain. And that's because there hasn't been a lot of focus on the human beings part of cybersecurity up until the last couple of years. And what that means is, you know, we're all human beings. We can't be patched. We can't have firmware upgrades. We can't do zero-day patches on ourselves. So we have to just constantly train our staff in the same way we do everything else operationally for our businesses, but we have to now include cybersecurity in that. So they have awareness, they can spot phishing attacks if they potentially get through the solutions and services we put in place, things like that. You know, so there's lots of different topics. Again, we'll show you some of the things that we're going to go through today on how we can reduce that risk. And I think we're on to Gordon now.
Yeah, there was a. If we go back to the poly, yeah.
Oh, I've got one more. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, so employee mistakes can be the cause of a data breach. So just what percentage of breaches are caused by human error? Let's just a quick poll from everyone to see what we think. How reliable are human beings at spotting clever breaches or breach attempts? So I'll just give everyone a few seconds to figure that one out. And then on to the next slide. So human beings, we're all, you know, clever, the most, you know, intelligent animals on the planet. However, we are emotional beings. We make mistakes, and because of that, criminals have found more and more clever ways to target, you know, the employees of businesses and find out, you know, more about the people to gain their trust, and then use that information to try and breach the systems that person has access to. So yes, we make mistakes. 90% of successful data breaches involve human error. It's probably not a huge surprise to anyone here, but still, it's scary that higher percentage is caused by this human error element, which again, it's the main reason for the webinar today, and it's something that we focus on as a business to really concentrate on the human learning element of protecting businesses, because we can put all of the platforms and security practices in place that we like, but it doesn't matter if we don't make sure that the staff, the employees of the businesses that we're looking after understand how to spot the errors or to the breaches that are coming in. 36% of breaches involve phishing. It's 11% more than 2 years ago. And you know, that's phishing generally through email. A lot of them, and again, most of us have probably seen them, can get really very, very clever. The amount of effort that's put into, for example, putting an HMRC type email to somebody so that somebody can go and gather that information. And unfortunately, we see it. Compliance is essential. So we've got GDPR, ISO 27001. That's a security standard, international standard that's understood. Generally, it's larger companies that will go for that kind of certification. All of these different regulations are being put in place to try and improve the overall security standard of businesses and the protection of data. But again, it all comes down to the human element of understanding the risks and understanding what not to do. Now, I reckon we could probably go into any office of any of the people that are involved in this webinar, and there'll be a password written down on a bit of paper, put in a drawer, on a post-it note, stuck to a monitor, that's got a password for either that person to get on that person's machine or to some sensitive application that they use as part of their day-to-day work. Again, for larger offices, there'll be cleaners that come into those offices. They can get access to that data that's left lying around. These simple things can be ways that you will have a breach in your business. Emailing accidentally sensitive data to the wrong recipient, falling victim to a phishing attack. More and more we are seeing the amount of targeted attacks, human engineering on employees happening over the last couple of years, in particular over the last couple of years of COVID. Why are humans at risk? As I say, so main thing, evolving threats. We've all heard of the dark web. I'm quite sure maybe a lot of you don't know exactly what it is. It's that part of the internet that routinely we can't get access to unless you're a bad actor or a criminal of some kind. Stolen credentials get put onto the dark web all the time. I think with what's going on in Ukraine, unfortunately, we know there's a huge amount more cyber warfare, if you like, going on. Dark web is where a lot of that information ends up and gets sold at a premium, and either criminal organizations or governments will buy that information to try and use that to compromise businesses and potentially governments. Lack of training. Many staff aren't trained in how to behave securely and understand and combat the threats. It doesn't take a huge amount of basic training to really reduce risk significantly. Again, one of the main reasons that we're here today to talk about it. Lack of processes and security policies within businesses. So the more that businesses are aware of the threats and the training that they can put in place, then the more that they can then make sure they have policies, for example, when they have new users starting in the business, so that they are ready to mitigate that risk in some way by having early training for new members of staff, for example, as they start join a business. So I'm going to pass on to Ewan now just to talk about some of the context of this.
So what we've got here is an example of a 100-seat organisation, just a round number, and this is just to kind of put the last couple of slides into context to let you see what that's going to look like and how these effects might have on your staff. So of 100 users, it's estimated that roughly there's a third, 2/3 of those have exposed data on the dark web. So it's likely, of us here today, 2/3 of us have got data, some sort of data on the dark web, and it could be, personal information, it could be email addresses, it could be your passwords, it could be your Facebook password, it could be your Netflix account, it could be all sorts of information that's on the dark web, and this is what bad actors are looking for to build the social engineering picture, to build the phishing attempts and things like that. Because if they can get this sort of information easily, then they've got a more likely chance to compromise the human beings. So that's a kind of scary thought. Of those, an entire third users who have leaked credentials. So leaked credentials is the keys to an application, the keys to something. So that's both either a username and a password or an email address and a password to something. And like I said, it might be some sort of, it may be a personal account. It could be, like I said, your Facebook account. It could be anything like that, or potentially even worse, it could potentially be an account that you log in for work. It could be your Salesforce account. It could be your Xero account. It could be any sort of credential. And that will obviously unlock the keys to the bad actor. But not only that, they will then try to use these credentials on other platforms that you might be using, and we've all been guilty of this in the past. Hands up, I've done it a long time ago. You use passwords for the same things because it's easy and convenient, but then what that does is it really starts to generate the risk, and that's what the picture looks like on an average 100 user organization. Now you can condense that or increase it to whatever size your organization is, but the metrics kind of work out roughly the same. So that'll roughly give you a picture of what your organization could look like in terms of information that may be on the dark web. We've got one more poll, I think, next on the next slide. So we're going to go into how can you transfer humans in your first line of defense. We should have another poll coming up in a second, which is going to ask, are you confident your employees could spot a phishing email? Which is really, really important. Like I mentioned, we can put all sorts of solutions in place, cybersecurity solutions, email protection solutions, but obviously nothing is guaranteed in terms of cybersecurity. So this is where we're going to start to rely on the human element, and people being aware of these threats and knowing that they exist first of all, and then how to deal with them when they come through. So Alex, I think it's over to you next.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, for the next step, it's really to talk about what we call like the human risk management. So it's really like a new topic that's extremely like recent. Like for example, before it used to be more about the infrastructures. It was hackers trying to get into the company's system, into the company's network. But now we know the hackers, because companies now are like really well protected for like the infrastructure, the easiest target is effectively people. It's what Gordon and you talked about before. It's people making mistakes, people clicking on phishing emails, etc. So what the Housekeeping platform does is really it helps you calculate those risks and reduce them over time and monitor them as well, just to make sure basically they like reduced correctly and people stop making mistakes. We do this with 4 different tools, which are those ones. So you have ULearn for the cybersecurity awareness training. You have UFish for the phishing simulations, UBreach for the dark web monitoring, and UPolicy for the policy management. Basically, what we want to do is a couple of things. We want to, again, assess everyone's knowledge on cybersecurity first. We want to know what they know and don't know about lots of different topics. For example, we're going to ask them a couple of questions on social engineering, because it's what Gordon was saying before. Like, for example, if a cleaner comes into the office and they ask, okay, like, can I get access to this room specifically because I need to clean it? What does like an end user should do? Do they ask for the ID? Would they just let them in, etc.? So it's really everyday situation that people need to know, like how to react correctly. Or they go to an airport, they want to use the public Wi-Fi. Do they have the right, or should they be using the public Wi-Fi? They have to transfer important data, like important documents, to someone else. It's really everyday situation that will be tackled with ULearn. With UFish, it's a bit different because it will be about phishing simulations, which again, Gordon, you talked about this before today. Most breaches come from phishing. It's people click on phishing emails, and those phishing emails get more and more realistic every day. You have phishing emails today which are ridiculous. They look identical to an actual phishing email because of what hackers do beforehand. They gather information about the victim, really. For example, they know that this specific person in the company, he works under this specific person, and then the hacker could impersonate someone's manager, for example. So today, phishing emails have increased tremendously and are becoming extremely realistic. For your breach, what we're going to do is be able to see what people do with their professional credentials. For example, if they have used them to access websites which are not linked to their work at all, and if because of that, their information is compromised and available on the dark web for people to use to launch, for example, phishing attacks and so on. And UPolicy will be for policy management. Again, as Gordon was saying before, because it's a requirement for like ISO 27001 or like Cyber Essentials, or even GDPR, for example, or because it's extremely practical to use for companies. How does it work? It's pretty much what I explained before. So 2 things really. First, a human risk report, which Gordon will talk about in just a bit, and the initial gap analysis quiz. Then what we can do is we're going to educate them. So based on the results that we have gathered from the gap analysis, from the initial assessment, people will be receiving training courses accordingly. So it's really different from being like, okay, we're going to train everyone phishing. No, because we know that today it's not relevant. It's not good enough. What we need to know is what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are. So that's why we have this gap analysis questionnaire that will be able to tell you this information and then train people accordingly. And it's a really key thing. And again, it keeps people engaged because they know they get training that's important to them, that's relevant to them. And calculate. So yeah, again, phishing, training, and policy management. And after this, it's going to fuse into a human risk score we can talk about in just a bit. Yeah. So the initial gap analysis, the assessment, again, it's very, very quick assessment. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to do tops. And after this, course people get will only take 5 minutes. So we recommend doing this once a month. I think that's typically like the best approach, because that way it doesn't take time away from people's job. And typically it takes like 5 minutes, as in it's a quick cybersecurity video, a couple of questions, and then a certificate of completion to download. So that's how it's presented. So it's extremely intuitive, extremely engaging, and people, we know from experience, really do courses quite well, like very well when you do it like this. I think on average, among our entire customer base, the course participation rate is around 85%, which is, we think, really good. Educate is because of the personalized programs that will be created via the gap analysis, as I mentioned before, and the risk score. So this is a very important figure, really, like number, because it tells you, okay, so right now we have done the risk report, we have done the gap analysis. This is the number we have, 381, for example, and this number can increase or decrease over time based on the responses of people on the phishing campaigns. If they stop getting caught by phishing, and for example, even if they report phishing emails they receive from us, the risk is going to decrease. If they stop, if they perform quite well for the training, same thing, the risk is going to decrease over time. So it's really like a key number to have here, really. And again, for like the phishing, for example, you have, I think we have like 400 templates available on the platform. So you have like new content basically all the time. You have lots of different scenarios that you can do. You can impersonate basically every major company you can have in like Scotland, for example, or in the UK globally. You have different layers of difficulty. For example, we can use the actual logos and company names of the company we impersonate, or we can use fake ones. We can change the sender email address, etc., etc. So lots of different scenarios we can launch, really. And to go more about why human risk management specifically, well, a couple of things really is to make training slick. We know from experience, from people's customers' feedback, it's really difficult to push people to actually do training seriously, because effectively lots of people say, well, it's quite boring, it's taking time away from my daily job, which is like a good point. It's like a fair point, really. That's where we really try our best to make courses and make training engaging and relevant. People have their their monthly training course, pretty short one, straight to the point, relevant. They get also the they have their own user portal if they need to, if they want to redo the courses, if they want to see how they do compared to, for example, the company globally, if there's some specific points they'd like to redo on a course, etc. So it's really to push, to make sure people engage with the course correctly. Cover the essentials. Again, it's what we mentioned before, making sure every process is clearly established with the phishing, the training, etc., and to achieve compliance, because again, legally speaking, is going to be more and more prevalent. Companies will need to show that they do courses, they actually train their staff on cybersecurity, they manage the policies correctly, they train people on phishing specifically, etc., etc. So the use platform helps do just that, really, to allow companies to be compliant. Up the next step, and I will let this one to Gordon, is really to launch on the side of the gap analysis, is to launch what we call the human risk report, which is really a key feature of the platform that helps you, again, gather the risk score I was mentioning earlier.
So thank you very much for that, Alex. If we can just go back a slide. Excuse us a second while we just get that webinar back up again. 2 seconds, here we are. Excellent. Okay, so for me, this slide, I think, human beings, we react well to graphics and colors. The risk score that you can get through the use secure analysis, yes, I mean, it's based on huge amount of knowledge. I mean, all IT companies deal with data, right? So huge amount of information to be able to gather from all the risk analysis that's been done on other users. So in this particular metric here, we see there's a medium risk. Now this is a medium risk of 350 out of 900. So 900 just being the highest risk. The lower the number, the lower the risk. We see here that this particular time to breach for this person or organization is 1 hour 35 minutes. So the amount of work that goes into any target attack is quite significant. And if the bad actors, the criminals out there, actually put those efforts into running proper businesses and doing good things, then they'll probably be quite successful. However, there's a lot of money to be made, unfortunately, in the cyber world, and we can see that there is a process that the criminals go through in doing some research on the human engineering aspect. So if they want to target, say, a finance person that works for a company, they can go on LinkedIn, they can go on Facebook and find out a little bit about people, so they can then put their assets, their email together, and however they want to target that particular person. The more they know about them, then the more likely that person is going to be duped into clicking the link, the malicious link in the email they get, or if it's a phone call, I mean, because it is done by phone sometimes as well, the human engineering bit, to get that information to then create and launch their attack, whether that's attack is by email or by phone, and then get the breach. And as I say, unfortunately, we have seen this happen to companies that we work with. Secure is one of the few applications out there that actually allows proper training for your staff. And as Alex said, it doesn't take a huge amount of time. And if a business hasn't been financially hit with a cyber attack of some kind through actually losing money, they may have been financially impacted by having a server down for half a day or 2 or 3 days, and the cost to that can run into the thousands or tens of thousands depending on the business. So the whole concept of training your staff, not just in how to use their systems, but how to understand risk, I think is something that more and more businesses are becoming aware of, and that is becoming more and more relevant because it gets talked about in the news on a weekly basis. So this risk report can be, you apply it to all the users in your business, you get an average score across the business, and as Alex says, you can get information on the weak areas for individual members of staff that you can then tailor the Secure training to then maybe target, so that person learns more. And it's all about reducing risk. A lot of what we do as a managed service provider is just trying to reduce the risk for our customers, whether it's a cybersecurity risk, whether it's the risk of systems that they're using not performing to the way they need them, the risk of hardware having to get replaced so it doesn't fail and cause downtime for users. The cyber security risk is probably definitely the highest one out there, and trying to get the businesses and the users that we work with to buy into that and to understand it, I think is one of the most important things for us. So moving on to what next, I shall pass on to Ewan.
Okay, so what next? Well, hopefully, this has been informative and has given you, some things to think about in terms of, reducing the human risk. So if you're considering, getting an understanding of where your employees' risk is, and the business ultimately would like to start that process with you, and we can do that by providing you a risk report and doing that initial kind of gap analysis that Alex mentioned earlier, and that'll basically provide the picture for the entire business, and let you see where people are going to need educated, where you're going to have training, where there's maybe leaked data on the dark web, and we'll go through that with you and do a follow-up and let you understand what all this information is and the risks that are associated with it all, to then really start looking at where we can then reduce that, which is the third step that we'll do. And we might then need to, tailor a solution for you, because the human risk report is one element of an entire cybersecurity posture, but it really is a key area, and we're seeing that this is one of the fastest growing areas in cybersecurity, is to try and reduce this, because like I mentioned earlier, with all the solutions and everything we can put in place, all the different tools, but we're seeing that this has really, really a strong impact on reducing those intrusion attempts and the risks. So yeah, we hope that you engage with us and we can go through that process and we can see what it looks like for your business, and we'll try and keep the risk at bay. So that's all from me. Gordon, have you anything to add to any of that?
just to say that you know, every business should have a layered approach to their security. The most basic for a lot of businesses, having antivirus software on their machines, having a good firewall in place to protect the network if you've got a larger office. But we have this human element that we're talking about today. As we've already demonstrated, and again, I don't think it'll be a surprise to anyone, the employees that you have, they absolutely need to be able to run your business. Also, are probably the biggest risk to the business, because the very fact they are human beings. They are emotional human beings. They react to things that they see. They react to things that they're familiar with, which is why there's so much effort put into a lot of the attacks by bad actors, as we like to call them, to replicate emails that people are used to seeing. So a finance person will be used to seeing an HMRC email, so they might be targeted with a phishing attack from HMRC on tax or something. They click on a link, it takes them to a website that looks like HMRC that isn't, credentials stolen, on to the next step. And our job as a managed service provider is to find the right businesses, the right organizations like YouSecure to partner with, to deliver that best security advice to our customers, to try and reduce the overall risk of them being compromised in any way, to allow them to run their businesses. And it's an ongoing battle. It will always be there, and there's a lot of time and effort and attention being put into it just now, because the whole working environment that everybody finds themselves in just now is entirely different to what it was 2.5 years ago. Hybrid working, people working from home, presents its own security risks, because they've got home routers that aren't as secure as a firewall that they have in the office. And you know, it's something that we are involved in daily with our customers. And as I say, if we can help reduce risk for the users within the businesses that we look after, then you know, that's the least we can do. It's a key part of our job. I'm not sure if Alex or Ewan want to add anything else to that.
And I think that was spot on, Gordon. It's really this, like today, with like new threats and everything. We mentioned before like ransomware, but now you have, for example, phishing and smishing. You're like getting like phony phone calls from people pretending to be your bank, for example, or like, you know, text message from like the NHS asking you to like log into your account to update like an information, for example. So new threats are like so diverse now, and they change so much that effectively, like training it can be something you do for like 2 or 3 times a year. It has to be like consistent and like, you know, every month, for example.
Ewan, have you got anything you want to just finish with?
No, I think that's it. Is, you know, we're these solutions are, you know, are being born because the threat is changing, and it's evolving, and you know, this is just a way that we can help you keep up with that. You know, what cybersecurity used to look like potentially 4 to 5 years ago is completely different to now. And you know, it is constantly it's a long war out there between bad actors trying to get into you know, businesses and ultimately gain financial footing of some kind. And you know, this is just another way that we can help you mitigate that, because you know, it's an area that's been targeted now. You know, individuals, human beings. So gone are the days where, you know, systems were generally attacked. It's now the human being that's now being attacked. And you know, this is the tool that will help prevent that from happening.
Yeah, and over the last few years, we have spent more and more time as an organisation advising our customers on improving their security. Again, because that's our job. And across the board, I would say the security of systems and devices and networks is probably in a better state than ever was. And because of that, yeah, as both Alex and Ewan have said, the bad actors, the criminal gangs, the criminal enterprise out there have then moved on to human beings, because they've realised they are the unfortunately now currently the weakest link. And education is the best thing that we can do to reduce the risk and help people understand what threats to look out for and where they're coming from. And YouSecure is a platform that certainly will contribute to that significantly. So thank you very much to Alex from YouSecure for your input today and for joining us. It's very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. Yeah.
And obviously to Ewan for joining me from SoConnect and giving a bit of information about this. We have a chat there if anyone's got any questions. Alternatively, please feel free to get in touch. You have contact details from the email. We're on LinkedIn, obviously. If you've got any questions you want to ask us that think might be relevant to the wider community, the wider business community, then fire a question on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to answer it. But if there's any direct questions to myself or Ewan or to Alex, you can get your details from Claire Anderson, who's our marketing specialist, and we can make sure we share any information with you. And as I say, this has been recorded, so anyone who's missed the webinar can have it sent to them, or if you would like anyone that's present just now, if you like the recording sent to you, then please let us know. I think I can see one question coming in possibly, so we'll just wait for that to land. Other than that, if there's anything from anyone else, please, as I say, drop a question in just now or drop us an email. Just looking at some of the results, actually from the polls. Let's see. 80% of the people that responded thought that the average value for a breach was over £4,000, and I think it was 1 to 4,000 was the actual the average cost. But we know that a large percentage of financial losses are above that as well. The amount of companies that were victim to a cyber attack in the last 12 months, amount of people, 83%, a scarily high number. And the amount of people that thought that breaches were caused by human error, yeah, no surprise, that was 90%. So the respondents to the polls were matching the real evidence that we've got. Okay, so that was just a thank you. Thanks to everybody for listening. I hope that it was of some benefit to you. And as I say, if there are any follow-up questions or queries, then please feel free to get in touch. And we will sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.